Welcome to Live the Dream with yours truly, Marty Kaiser. Buckle up and let's get started. Happy Friday, everyone. This is Marty Kaiser with our first podcast of 2025, our Real Estate Tidbits podcast. Hope everyone had a safe and healthy New Year's, and hopefully you'll have a great and healthy 2025. Unfortunately, as everybody probably knows, we had a few terrible tragedies over the New Year's holiday, the one in New Orleans. We also had an incident in Las Vegas. And then we had a bunch of people that were injured in a shooting in Queens, New York. Violence tends to be a real problem in this country, both with terrorism activities and abuse of guns and weapons. I wish that everybody would come together in this country, not only to eliminate the hatred and discord, but to put some realistic controls so that guns won't be abused. The death toll from guns continues to rise in the United States. We have more gun-related deaths in the United States than any democratic country in the world. I have no problem with guns being legal, but there needs to be sensible controls on them. Enough on the negative stuff. On the positive side, we're expecting a robust real estate year in 2025. I think we'll probably see a higher growth rate the second half of 2025, but I'm very interested to see how the first quarter does. December of 2024 on a personal level was busier than I expected for me, so that's always a very positive sign. As you probably know, the president-elect will be inaugurated shortly. In fact, today, kind of the first big political news in the United States, the Speaker of the House is running for re-election. It's supposed to be a close vote, so that'll be interesting to see how that does. The Speaker of the House has a big impact on how Congress is run and somewhat on what bills are passed and what bills are not passed. And obviously everybody has their own opinion on positive and legislative actions, but we certainly don't want a Congress that does nothing, and obviously we want to make sure that we don't have budget upheaval with government services being suspended. They passed the last-minute continuing resolution in December, and hopefully prior to that one running out in the first quarter of 2025, we'll have a smoother mechanism to get some worthwhile legislation passed. But anyway, that's a brief overview of our political spectrum. I would say 2025 should be a quite interesting year. I think there's a combination of a lot of uncertainty, and also a lot of people have a very positive expectation that things are going to improve with the change of administrations. I certainly hope so, but a lot of it remains to be seen on what programs are actually passed, and the programs that may cost more money, how are those going to be paid for? There's been a lot of speculation that in order to pay for some of these proposals, a lot of important services may be dramatically reduced, which may impact quite a bit people that really need help. So we'll just have to see with that. It's kind of a wait and see. I think we'll know more in the next few months on the direction of our government in 2025. Excuse me. On a personal level, we're looking to do some exciting things in 2025. We're going to continue to increase our podcast. We hope to have live interviews in the not too distant future. We're going to try to increase our social media posts. As you probably have seen with me, I love to chat and express my opinions, but I'm probably post a lot less social media than a lot of other people, because I'm somewhat private and I don't want to bore people with personal family stuff, so I tend to not post that type of stuff. I tend to post more things just to hopefully put a positive spin on things, give people an idea of some of the new things that we may be doing. Obviously, I would love to continually increase the listenership on our podcast. I try to make the podcast not only interesting, but informative and make them diverse. We always, of course, talk about real estate, my expectations for 2025 on the local economy and how real estate's going to be impacted, along with throwing in some hopefully interesting commentary on some politically related things. I always try to incorporate also sports and anything else that may be germane to what's going on. Obviously, sometimes that we go to on air, something really either interesting or tragic has happened, and we try to mention that and keep people apprised on recent developments. At the same time, we try to incorporate things that might be of interest. We obviously have a lot of sports fans in the country, so we try to give a little bit of information about that. This time of the year, sports is particularly interesting because we have a number of sports, what I would call intersecting. And what I mean by that is we're in the midst of the college playoffs. This is the first year of the expanded playoffs. So the playoffs started with 12 teams, where up until this year we only had 4 teams. And we've had 2 rounds of playoffs now, so now we're down to 4 teams. The 4 remaining teams are Ohio State will be playing against Texas, and the other game is Notre Dame against Penn State. Obviously, those 4 teams are very high-profile teams. They have a lot of followers, and it should be interesting. I would say that any of the 4 teams could win because they're all very solid teams. My own personal opinion, for what it's worth, is I believe that when everything's said and done, Ohio State will be the national champions for 2025. Now, the interesting thing in our current college football blueprint, I guess you could say, or where we're at in college football, is we have what's called the NIL now, which is name, imaging, and licensing. So that's probably what it's done is it's created a lot more flexibility for the players. A lot of them are actually getting compensated now. So basically amateurism as we know it is a dead concept. And also players can transfer on a regular basis. So those 2 things have changed the landscape of college sports a lot, primarily in football and basketball. Some of the bigger programs can basically buy the best team. In fact, there's been a lot of publicity about Ohio State. They spent a ton of money in the millions paying for players. I personally think that players should be compensated in some fashion because they do put a lot of time and effort into sports, and they also suffer injuries. At the same time, they get a free education if they take advantage of that to get a good education. And I think the current college climate is an overreaction. I do think they should be compensated, but I don't think it should be at the type of monies that we're hearing about. Because what it does is it creates a non-competitive playing field. Because the bigger schools with the boosters that are wealthier, larger type boosters willing to pay more money, they have a significant advantage. On a local basis, for example, the University of Central Florida, who just started playing in the Big 12, which was a big boost for them, as they'll be sharing in a lot more TV revenues as they're in a higher profile football conference. Their program had been tremendously on the upswing, but they suffered a setback the last 2 years because they don't have the revenue from the NIL that some of the teams they compete with. And so the coach that they had, Gus Malzone, who was a relatively high-profile coach, he had coached previously in the the SEC conference at Auburn. The program basically took a step back with him at the helm, and he resigned in December and walked away from a good bit of guaranteed salary he had to basically take a demotion. Now he's the offensive coordinator with Florida State. I believe he did that for a couple reasons. Number one, I think he was concerned that he might get removed from the job because UCF had a very disappointing 2024 season. And also, I just don't feel he had the wherewithal to recruit in today's environment with money being such an important factor, along with more of the coach's personality, being able to be more of a draw to players that really wanted to play for him. The great news is we brought back our coach that had 2 record-breaking seasons a few years ago, Scott Frost. Scott took over the program when they were 0-11 the year prior to him taking over. And within 2 years, they had an undefeated season and won a major bowl game. So that turnaround was phenomenal. And he did that without any of the benefits that we're currently experienced. He ran a very creative and fast-moving offense, and I think he's going to be a great conduit to start bringing back more top-level talent. And hopefully he can fire up the alumni and boosters to make UCF more competitive with their NIL revenue. So we're keeping a close eye on college football and the playoffs. In the NFL, the Professional Football League, we're in the last week of the season, and then in 1 week from now, the playoffs will start. And that's always a very exciting time for professional football. My personal opinion prior to the playoffs starting is my prediction is when everything's said and done, the 2025 Super Bowl will have the Kansas City Chiefs, who have won 2 consecutive Super Bowls and going for a third one. And I believe they will oppose who they opposed a few years ago, the Philadelphia Eagles. Those should be an exciting game, regardless of who the teams are. But those are my 2 selections. You'll have the tremendous quarterbacking skills of Patrick Mahomes, who most people feel is the best quarterback in football, against Jalen Hurts of the Eagles, if my future picks are correct. You also will have probably the best coach in football right now, Andy Reid. He's presided over an unparalleled success rate in Kansas City. So that should be exciting. The most valuable player award, which has not been selected yet for the regular season of 2024-25 in the NFL, should be exciting to see who wins. We had a lot of tremendous performances this year. My personal selection in what I think will be a pretty close vote, I believe that when everything's said and done, Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills will be the most valuable player. But there'll be a lot of sentiment for Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens, Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals, and two running backs who've had tremendous years. Saquon Barkley of the Philadelphia Eagles, who is on pace to set the all-time rushing record. He probably won't get it, is that it's expected that he'll sit out the last game to rest up for the playoffs. The other running back who had a tremendous year was Derrick Henry of the Baltimore Ravens. The last player that's going to get some consideration is Jalen Daniels of the Washington Commanders. He's had probably the best rookie year of any player that's come into the league, at least during my lifetime. The Commanders had been a substandard team for a bunch of years in a row, and he pretty much single-handedly, along with a new coaching regime, has reversed course with them, and they're going to get into the playoffs this year. They've won 11 games already, and I believe last year they only won 5 or 6 games. So their turnaround has been quite impressive, and Jalen Daniels has definitely been the conduit for that. So that's it about sports. The NBA, which is basketball, they still have a ways to go. They've been through about a third of the year, and the early consensus is the Boston Celtics should be a tough team to dethrone, and it looks at this point that their main competition will be two teams, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are off to a record-breaking start in the Eastern Conference, and in the Western Conference, the Oklahoma Thunder, who are on, I believe, around an 11 or 12 game winning streak, have a young team, and they have a lot of talent, and so they've been very impressive. So those are some of the top teams in basketball, but we'll know more down the road. The playoffs in basketball don't start until April, so we've got a ways to go. So basically, that's it for today. I hope everyone is staying warm and has got their blueprint for 2025. My only recommendations from a lifestyle standpoint, now is the time to focus on your health and family. If you're not already doing it, consider exercising in your daily regimen. Try to eat healthy and stay healthy. Take care. This is Marty Kaiser out.